Hello friends, my name is Bahroz and welcome to the channel where I share with you tips, tricks that I read, learn and apply in order to become the best version of myself. So in this video, using real questions from the Peak Performance Online Test, I will tell you ways in which you can ace your peak performance test. Now this video has following parts. One, I will explain to you what peak performance test is about. Second, I will explain to you how you should prepare for the peak performance online test. And third, I will take you through sample questions. I have gathered a number of sample questions and I will take you exactly how to read them and how to answer those questions. Note, you may not receive the same questions again. P&G has a library of thousands of questions which it keeps rotating every time there is a test that takes place. So questions that you may see on the web or on YouTube may not be exactly the same questions that will come in your particular test. However, if you get a general idea of how to read the question, how to frame it, how to understand it, and then how to answer it, in that case, you can answer any question that comes your way. So by use of these examples from the Peak Performance Online Test that I will share with you and help you answer, you will be able to answer any sort of Peak Performance Online Test question. Also, in a way, this video will help you practice those questions and get you familiar with the type of questions you should expect and not be surprised. Now, the Peak Performance Assessment Test measures the candidate's experience, background, interest, and work-related attitude. And more importantly, it measures the candidate's compatibility with Procter & Gamble's competencies for predicting successful job performance. P&G's Peak Performance Online Test comprises of judgment, situational, and personality tests, which contain multiple choice and rating questions. Multiple choice part questions include both scenario-based questions and additional questions around background preferences, work style. Now, the best way to prepare for this Peak Performance Online Assessment Test is to go through P&G's value system and performance requirement. It is these requirements and value systems that Procter & Gamble wants its employees to exhibit. Hence, you need to ensure that you keep your responses as close to those requirements as possible. Now, in order to get grounded in this peak performance factor, for that you'll have to go and check out the link of the video that I shared above. Now, this Peak Performance Online Assessment Test is officially untimed, but most of the candidates finish it under 20 minutes. Now, this means you don't have to rush through the questions. Rather, you should take your time, read the question, understand, and then answer. Now, while there is no deadline for you to complete and submit the test, however, if you don't complete the test and submit it within the reasonable time, in that case, you may lose the position altogether because Procter & Gamble may end up just hiring someone else. Hence, it is recommended to complete the test within 7 days of receiving the link. Now, in case your application gets cancelled because you were not able to complete the test, in that case, you can reapply and get another invitation for the test. However, in case you fail the peak performance test, in that case, you'll have to wait for 12 months before you can apply for a new position. Because Procter & Gamble believes that it will take you at least 12 months for you to regain that knowledge or build those requirements that they want their candidates to exhibit. Now, without further ado, let's get going with practicing those questions. So first and foremost, you'll see this intro page which will talk about the assessment, where they talk about what is this test about, what it comprises of. Essentially, they want you to provide facts on your backgrounds and interests as well as your point of view on issues related to working at P&G. Now, here are some ground rules for the assessment. It will take approximately 20 minutes. Make sure you select the language of your preference. There shouldn't be any distraction. One important thing, the assessment will show the count of the questions that you've completed and the count of questions that is still left. All questions are mandatory to answer. You can't submit without answering any question. In case you choose to exit at any given point in time, your responses will be saved. And when you log in again, you can start exactly from where you left. Throughout this assessment, you will use this arrow to the right in order to move forward to the next page. The assessment has like 4 sections. So at the end of each section, you submit your responses, confirming that the section has been completed. And once the section is completed, you cannot go back. And you're required to complete all the sections before you submit. So these are the ground rules for the assessment. Now, then you'll see 2 examples for each type of questions. One is multiple choice question, the other is rating question. In multiple choice, you have to pick one answer from the list of answers. And here you can only select one response at a time, unless otherwise it's stated. The second type of questions are rating questions, which asks you to rate a statement or series of statements using sliding scale. Here you can select one response at a time only. Now let's move on to the examples. Here's a multiple choice question example. So in social settings, what you have been most likely to do. Introduce yourself to others, accept introductions from others but don't initiate them, ask someone else to introduce you, enjoy the function by yourself, trying not to disturb others. It's best to read all the questions, and the best way to answer any typical multiple choice question is to use the elimination method. First, you can decide what are the options which are a clear no, and then there will be most probably 2 options left between which you can choose or let's say guess. So for instance, accept introductions from others but don't initiate them. This is a clear no, because this is like a bad social etiquette, right? So this is a clear no. and enjoy the function by yourself. Trying not to disturb others is not a good option either, because when you're going in a social setting, it's always good to either introduce yourself or at least get to know others versus just being aloof and being in the corner. So it's either number 1 or number 3. Number 3 is still kind of asking someone else to do the favor for you. So I would go for option 1, which kind of puts the onus on you, puts the responsibility on you, and you own the situation, and hence you lead the action. Second is rating example. Using the sliding scale below, respond to each statement by sliding the selector to appear under the section that best corresponds on how each statement describes you. I enjoy reading or listening to the daily news. Now again, reading daily news is a good thing, because this is how you keep yourself updated to what's going on in the market, and hence it will help you perform better on your assignment, because you would have more information, you've read more, you would have more knowledge that you can apply back to your work. So in any case, this should be somewhere around somewhat true to very true, but you can't select somewhat untrue or very untrue at all. Now let's get into the questions. Now the first sample question that I have is, your boss has given you permission to order new office supplies. You need to build procedures manual for new hires. So you need binders. You look in the office supply catalog and see 15 different types of binders that all look the same. What would you do? So the clear peak performance factor that I see here being used is champion productivity, which is simplify. So let's start elimination. So number 1, order the least expensive binder to save money. This may not be the great option, because while you may be going for the cheapest option, but it may not be the best in quality. And the other one is order the most expensive binder because it has brand name you recognize. Again, you just don't pay extra money just because it's branded. Your decision needs to be based on some analysis, some thinking. So let's see what other options say. Comparing between number 4 and 5, they're kind of same, where you look at past data. It's just that number 4 is more simple because you're asking one person instead of sending an electronic message to everyone. So looking into simplification, I would eliminate number 5 and keep number 4. And now comparing between number 2 and number 4 is more past looking, while number 2 seems more forward looking, where you are deciding based on your recent needs versus just looking blindly into what was ordered previously, which may not be the best order. So I would go with option number 2, where as per the peak performance factor, you act as an owner of the company, which says takes actions and makes decisions in the best interest of the company. And the best interest of the company is the latest and greatest needs of the company, not what was ordered in the past. Now in the second question, a strong performing manager with 30 years of service is discovered taking a soda from the cafeteria each afternoon without paying for it. They are warned that continuing this behavior could lead to termination, but they continue taking sodas from the cafeteria. Now, even before reading any of the options, let me make it very clear that in P&G there was a very clear understanding that you will never get fired on any bad performance, on any bad business results, except if there is a stewardship or control issue. So P&G has zero tolerance for control lapses, any fraud, any cheating, 0, 0, 0. So this one should be a very easy pick. And hence, given the manager has already been warned and company has no tolerance for controls, frauds or cheating, the answer would be to terminate the manager for stealing. Now question number 3, the members of team you are leading have very specific responsibilities that do not overlap. Occasionally a team member is pulled away briefly to handle other company functions, delaying your team's work because that team member's task cannot be completed. Your team members have in past expressed reservation about being cross-trained on each other's responsibility. What would you do? So again, let's start with the elimination option. So one clear one I see is attempt to set flexible deadlines for your team's project so that delays can be accommodated. Now this is something which goes against the peak performance factor of execute with excellence, especially under which it says operate with discipline, acts with a sense of urgency and with the end result in mind. The second one, implement a program to train the team across job responsibilities. This one is good so far, but when it says indicating that the needs of the team outweigh team members' reservation, this is completely no. Team members' reservation is very important. Indeed, the needs is important as well. So are the reservation. So this is another one we can easily eliminate. The first option, use temporary workers to fill in for team members when they are pulled away to handle other company functions. This doesn't seem like a permanent and long-term fix because you're kind of doing a very temporary fix, and it's something that won't be the best option here. And now picking between option 4 and 5, I would pick option number 4. Referring to the bring out our best, it sounds more around being transparent, inclusive and collaborative. Also teaching, coaching and mentoring, all of these elements just come into play. Question number 4, one of your assignments at work is to analyze the results of a company-wide engagement survey. After spending several days on the analysis, you realize that you made a mistake. Instead of categorizing the data by the newly recognized business unit, you categorize the data by the older system because this change is relatively new. Not all information about the new units was in the company's computer system. You had to do some research yourself. Ultimately, it created a lot more work for you, but you put in extra hours at work to be able to submit the report on time. How would you move forward so this problem isn't encountered in the future? So let's see the options. Again, starting with the elimination, don't tell anyone of the mistake. Cross it out. Tell your manager of the problem and suggest that he sends out messages, which is number 5. Again, this is not you taking the responsibility, rather you're putting the responsibility on the manager. Rather, the peak performance factors require you to own the business. Now, given the question is asking, how do you ensure that this problem isn't encountered in future, which may be the situation where you are not present in that role or your team is not in that role. So for instance, if you go ahead and share the experience with colleagues, if you see that they're working on something similar, you just share the experience with them and the experience just dies there. Take this opportunity as a learning opportunity for your team and share with them the details of your mistake. Again, you just inform the team and that's it. However, looking at option 1, document the changes for the new business units and post this information to a place where it's accessible to the whole company. Now, this is where you're educating the entire company. So even if you tomorrow leave the company or your team leaves the company, this information will be accessible and available for the entire company to make use of. Question number 5, you're working on a project that is important to the company and you have just made some critical breakthroughs. Your company then asks you to work on a new project, which will take most of your time, saying the new project is a higher priority. Now, if the company has told you that the new project is high priority and they want you to work on it, in that case, you need to show flexibility, right? So explain that because of critical stage of your work on the first project, it is best that someone else be assigned to work on the second is not a good answer or not a good option. Similarly, because it was stated to be higher priority, you just can't kick off the first project and just completely forget about it, even if it goes to dump. So this third option is a bad option also. Now, given the company has already set the priority for you and they've decided that you need to work on the second project, I think it is important for you to just go ahead, explain the circumstances on the first project to your management, ensuring they understand the implication of a shift in your priorities. So I would be torn between the last 2 options where you are stepping up, explaining the circumstance to the management and letting management be aware of the situation where there's project 1 going on where breakthroughs have been made, but project 2, which you understand is also a priority. But in order to not to sound too pushy, I would not pick the last option, rather I'll just go and pick the 4th option, where you make the management aware before you move on to the next project. Number 6, while on holiday, you think of a brilliant idea for innovating one of the company's products. You have a team meeting scheduled for the week after you return, but the meeting's focus is new product development, not changing existing product. Again, start with elimination. The last option can be eliminated because before even talking the idea, you can't be just thinking of plans for implementing the idea. So this one is a no. The first one is a no as well. You just can't talk over the idea with others outside and inside the company without even sharing it and talking it with your team. Perform some informal research to evaluate if your idea would help the customer. Now, this is a good thing to do, but it doesn't answer the question or the challenge that is posed by the question itself, which is how would you handle the meeting, not rather how would you get the research and data on the idea. Now we're left with option number 2 and option number 4. In option number 4, you're again putting the onus on the supervisor and asking him to push yourself into the agenda, which is not the right way of managing things and doing things by using kind of a superior person to make a spot for yourself in the agenda. So the best option here would be wait until the time is right. Because if the meeting is about something else, you can't just sabotage the meeting with your idea. Rather, you let the meeting flow as is and then you find the right time for your idea to be passed on to your team. Number 7, you were recently hired by the finance department. You have training and experience in finance, but you also have an advanced degree in communications. You enjoy both, but would love the opportunity to combine them together at some point. During this week team meeting, you hear of a project that you feel is directly applicable to your unique experience and education. However, your supervisor assigned that project to a coworker and asked you to work on a more conventional finance task. What would you do? Let's start with elimination again. Now, given your manager has already taken this decision and given you're new in the company and have to learn the ropes of the tasks and job and the function and the company itself, I would eliminate the option where you tell your supervisor that you are not suited for conventional finance tasks, which is option number 3. I will also eliminate option number 4, where complete your conventional finance task as quickly as possible and accurately as you can, then ask if you can be assigned to the project. Again, you don't get the project just because you did something different quickly and accurately. Work on the project you were assigned. Recognize that your supervisor is likely trying to familiarize you with the department by working on the finance. This may be a good option, but the issue here is that you're not voicing what you believe is the right thing to do or the suggestions you have, right? Because if you give your suggestions, only then you make the department stronger and better. So I would be picking something between the option 1 and 2. I think I'll pick option number 1 because this makes kind of the supervisor aware that where you can add value, where your energy is, and that you're ready to put extra time. Now, once this section is completed, we move to section number 2. When part of a team, how many times in the past year have you taken responsibility for organizing the group's activities? Again, here you just need to be honest. I won't just pick 7 or more, especially given with Procter & Gamble, they're hiring new graduates from university. So the number of instances where you've had these experiences organizing groups are usually not a lot. So certainly I won't go to 0 or 1 to 2. I would pick something between 3 to 4 or 5 to 6. Here the safe bet would be to pick 5 to 6. How would others describe the quality of your work? Again, stay away from extremes here. Always submitted on time but overlooked some small details. Here the only good option is always submitted on time and all details were correct. You can't just say the details were not good. You can't just say that you hurried the project, or you can't just say you submitted late, or you can't say that you overlooked small details. You have to be into the details and you have to submit on time, because this is simply connected to the execute with excellence peak performance, where you're required to demonstrate develop mastery, which stays current in areas of expertise and converts new knowledge into practical application. Question number 3. In the past, how often have you challenged the status quo to ensure that the right action was taken? Again, avoid the extremes and pick up the good answer, which is often. When you're part of a group, to what extent are you likely to stand up for what is right when no one else will? Now here I will pick an extreme, because being right and standing up for what is right is very, very important for P&G. Again, as I said, with regards to the PVPs, you can stay in the company even with bad results, but any wrong action, not standing up for what is right, not standing up for the values of the company, this is not tolerated. So I would just pick great extent here, going against my previous advice of staying away from the extreme. How effective are you at setting team projects goals? Again, avoiding the extremes, I would pick very effective. Avoiding the extremes again, how often do you spend time putting together strategy to accomplish? Again, avoiding the extremes, pick often. In past, how frequently have others asked you for advice? Same, avoid the extremes and pick up the good answer, which is more often than they asked others. Number 8, to what extent have friends or colleagues come to you for advice? Avoid the extreme and pick up the good answer, large extent. To what extent have you accepted changes in work processes or activities? Large extent. To what extent have you been able to recognize when a change was necessary? Maybe here and there you can pick great extent as well, just to break the trend. Otherwise, you just don't want to pick the second option for all the answers, right? So maybe here I will pick great extent. How often have you had to make decisions affecting other people while under a grade? More often than others, or much more often than others? As I said, for 1 or 2 questions, you can be slightly more extreme, but try to remain one step below extreme for the others. How comfortable have you felt taking action when the outcome is uncertain? Same, either much better than others, better than others. Just make sure when you pick the extreme, you pick like 25% of the time you pick the extreme, but for the balance 75 or let's say 80% of the time, you pick one step down. So you don't just want to sound that in your mind you think you're the best and the perfect dude. Rather, you still leave some room for improvement, because no one is perfect, right? So they don't want someone who just thinks of them as complete and someone who knows everything. Rather, someone who knows something or little bit more than average, but has room for improvement and knows and understand that they have that room for improvement. How often do you choose to take leadership role when in group situation? Here certainly I would not go for the extreme and would say often, because there are certainly times when you should not be taking a leadership position and you should be a follower in those times. So you should be knowing how to follow as much as you should know how to lead. In the past, to what extent have you attempted to get support from peers before presenting an idea to the group leader? Large extent. Now the 2 sections are completed. This is the 3rd section we are on. Please indicate the level of importance of each work feature below. Work in line with my primary interest. Say somewhat important, not pick highly important, because there will always be tasks that will be given to you which may not be exactly of your interest, but they need to get done. Learning through experience and varied assignments. This could be something highly important, because in P&G, they constantly change your assignments every 2 to 3 years. And the expectation is for you to learn different areas of your function. So for instance, in case of finance, it would be corporate accounting, sales finance, logistics finance, financial analysis, and so on and so forth. Having decision-making authority, somewhat important. Same, I would avoid the extreme. Highly important would sound like you are just into decision making and you are not someone who can be a follower. You just want the leadership position. Receiving a very high starting salary. I would even pick not important here, just to have color across this chart and not just be between somewhat important and highly important. You can just pick not important. It really doesn't matter. P&G has a standard salary that they offer to everyone. Even if you pick not important here, it won't change anything. They will give you the salary, they will offer the same salary to you that they offer to every other new hire. The amount of freedom you have to make decisions, again, depends. If you've already picked a lot of highly important, then I would pick somewhat important. If most of your responses are somewhat important, then I'll pick highly important. This is kind of a good one where you can say that you want to be empowered, because empowerment is encouraged in Procter & Gamble. So that would be something you can pick between somewhat important and highly important. Work that requires a variety of skills, I would say somewhat important, because again, P&G would expect you to at times be working on things where you may not have that variety of skills, right? You may have limited skills. May give you work that may not require variety of skills, and that is fine. You will get different kind of work and you should be okay to do all kind of work that is available and that helps the company grow and deliver its objectives. Become a supervisor of others, somewhat important. Having clear understanding of your work responsibilities, somewhat important, because not every task would be very clear where your role and responsibility will be defined and designed in advance. Working for a company that allows adequate balance between work and family responsibilities. Here you can pick highly important, as no company will hold it against you for you to say that you want a good work-life balance between your work and your family. And P&G is also a company which is constantly striving to create and provide that balance to their employees. So I would just simply pick highly important here. Otherwise, all your responses would be falling into somewhat important. As I mentioned before, note that you may not get the same questions, but the idea is just for you to understand how to kind of frame and answer if there are different kind of questions, but with similar context, how you should address them and what kind of thinking cap you should be wearing or what kind of approach you should be taking in answering them. Last set of questions for this part. Working for an organization that has few levels of middle managers. Working in a casual environment, I would just simply pick somewhat important. Just stay in the middle, avoid the extremes. Select the responses that best represent how accurately each statement describes you. Can achieve a lot limited time. This is important for Procter & Gamble, championing productivity. As I said, your responses should not be extreme, but maybe you should pick some extremes and some one step below extreme. When I try, I generally succeed. I would say accurate here. Don't go for extreme here for sure. At times I come up with new ways to do things, but other times I stick to established ways. I would pick accurate here as well. Understand people very well. Accurate. Have ability to inspire others. Here you can pick very accurate as well. It's not harming. You don't seem overconfident by saying this. The idea is here that you just inspire people. Usually accept constructive criticism without getting upset. Here I would say very accurate. Try to improve my productivity at schoolwork. Given it already uses the word try, you can say very accurate because you try. You may not be successful every time, but you do try. Come up with new ideas about as often as my peers do. I would just pick accurate. I'm confident that I could deal efficiently with most unexpected events. Accurate. Usually follow through on my plans, but not always. This one is a trick question because it says usually follow through on my plans, but not always. Here I would use inaccurate. Avoid the extreme, not go for very inaccurate, but just pick inaccurate. Show interest in other people only if I can benefit from them. Very inaccurate. Find it challenging to look at a problem from many different perspectives. Here you don't need to pick an extreme again and pick inaccurate. Have a hard time seeing how a business trend could impact my work. Choose between very inaccurate and inaccurate. Decision-making skills are about average compared to others. Inaccurate. Know some of my own strengths and weaknesses but don't know all of them. Inaccurate. It's hard to get ahead without cutting corners here and there. Cutting corners not allowed in Procter & Gamble. Very inaccurate. Can talk others into doing things. Accurate. Value cooperation over competition. Very accurate. Often risk doing things differently. Risk taking is something which is encouraged, so accurate. Do not usually believe I can succeed at an endeavor to which I set my mind. Very inaccurate. Always evaluate an idea before putting it into place or practice. Accurate. Will feel very bad if I stole from someone. Highly accurate. Have good understanding of emotions of people around me. Very accurate or accurate. I would pick very accurate here. Work quickly. Accurate. Enjoy learning new things about as much as other people do. Accurate. Sometimes work well under pressure. Accurate. Yeah, there will be certain instances where you will be put into pressures. You should give a picture where yes, you can work into pressure if it is required. Usually come up with fewer options than other people to solve a problem. No, you should be coming with more options, so inaccurate. Want to have the last word? Not at all. Very inaccurate. Not always true when solving problems. Very inaccurate. Believe that cheating is wrong because it is unfair to others. Very accurate. Again, cheating, the word cheating comes here and your alarm should be on. Have been told I need to work on my leadership ability. Inaccurate or very inaccurate. Have a lot of ideas, but I would not say that I have a countless number of them. Inaccurate. Because the statement is not positive, so certainly I'll pick inaccurate. Avoid direct conflict with others because they may be useful in the future. Conflict is good, conflict is healthy. So very inaccurate or inaccurate. Rather, I would pick very inaccurate here because you may be avoiding a very necessary conflict just because you think you will be needing those people in future. So the idea is not to make good relationships here, right? Relationships are important, but when the company's guidelines or objectives or interests come online, it is important that you keep people interest on the side and pick and favor company's interest. Sometimes get distracted when I'm trying to focus. Inaccurate. Seek out new ideas about as often as other people. Accurate. Try to view failure as a learning opportunity, but sometimes it is too difficult to do so. Inaccurate. It should be always easy for you to do so. Try to look at things from different perspective, but sometimes I do not succeed. Accurate. Look out for others if it does not convenience me. No, you should be looking out for others even if it inconveniences you. So inaccurate. I'm great at turning problems into opportunities. Very accurate. Have hard time developing a vision. Very inaccurate. You can't accept that. You need to be someone who is visionary, who can inspire people, who can design a vision, understand current issues and events about as much as other people. Accurate or very accurate. Some of the time I can apply information from another field to my work, but not always. This is a tricky one. I would say inaccurate because you should be able to apply learning from other fields all the time, but don't pick an extreme. Try to clarify ambiguous situations, but am not always successful. Inaccurate. Avoid the extreme because it's kind of a negative statement, so don't want to go too negative here. So inaccurate because it's using the word try. Second one also has the try word. Try to act with the end result in mind, but am not always successful. Maybe between these three, I would pick one accurate, but keep it between inaccurate and accurate, a mix of inaccurate and accurate. The idea here is you don't want to sound like you have everything in control, you know everything, you're the best guy, you have command on everything. So kind of a mix is good. So maybe out of these three, I would pick one accurate, but most of them inaccurate would be fine. Misjudged situation. Inaccurate is conventional. Inaccurate. Look to others to clarify ambiguous situation. Here I can pick accurate. Looking to others, kind of giving an idea of a teamwork. So which is like you're checking in with your team when there is a situation, which is a good thing to do. Like to live by my own rules. Inaccurate. No, you don't want to live by your own rules. You want to live by the rules of your organization, which are very important, right? Usually make decisions in a timely manner, but sometimes I end up spending more time than I should. Inaccurate. Have moderate ability to keep working on a difficult task when I do not want to. That's a good one. I would pick accurate because this is kind of positive, but again, avoid the extreme. Take advantage of others. Very inaccurate. Dislike having authority over others. Inaccurate. Avoiding the extreme. It's kind of a negative statement, but I would still avoid the extreme here and pick inaccurate. Sometimes I seek out others with great expertise in an area of interest. Accurate. Treat people well when they deserve it. You should be treating people well even if they don't deserve it. So inaccurate, do not like it when other people try to lead the group when I am in charge. Inaccurate, there can be other people who kind of show up as being leader. So it's leadership is not like you own the position. There can be other sub leaders within the team as well. Sometimes I adapt to change easily, but other times I find it difficult. Inaccurate, you should give a picture and an idea that you are open to change and you adapt to change very easy. I'm filled with doubts about my competence. Inaccurate, frequently challenge the status quo. Very accurate or accurate, need the approval of others. Inaccurate, you don't need to wait for others to approve your actions, right? There's something that you think is the right thing to do, you can just take that action. I'm able to adjust my behavior and become the type of person dictated by any situation. Accurate, shows you're flexible. Do not usually believe I can succeed at an endeavor to which I set my mind. Very inaccurate, you always have that belief that you can succeed. Prefer to finish my task as soon as I can, but I do not always end up doing so. Inaccurate, the second part of the statement is kind of negative, hence avoid the extreme. But inaccurate, like trying new ideas even if I'm not sure they will succeed. Accurate or very accurate, occasionally put an effort to stay current in my area of expertise. Accurate or very accurate. That's the end of the fourth section. So we've completed all four sections. As I said before, these are sample questions that I have had access to through the web or the internet. These questions keep changing, the wording keep changing, but as long as you have the idea of how to think and how to approach a particular question, and you have that reference of the peak performance, and you can always direct yourself to the peak performance, you will always end up answering it right and scoring well on this test. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully with all this information, now you would be able to ace your peak performance online test. And once you get a call for your interview, you can check out my other two videos where I talk about one, explaining the peak performance factors,